This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
Glad to have you here with us on the Retirement Solution with financial advisor Jon Hicks. I'm Heather Branch here with Jon to ask for his insight on ways that you can better prepare for your financial future. RetirementSolutionRadio.com is where you can go to begin the conversation with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital. We also have links posted in the show notes. You can just click there or again, find us anytime. RetirementSolutionRadio.com. So we keep hearing the sound of the alarms about projected healthcare costs. One study said that a 65-year-old couple with median prescription drug expenses needs nearly $300,000 in savings for a 90% chance of having enough to cover healthcare in retirement. Now I need to go back. Okay, wait. Let's go back.
Hold on. So what they're saying is out of pocket. So after Medicare, after whatever those things pay, there's a chance.
A 90% chance.
A 90% chance that a 65-year-old couple will spend $300,000
of their savings
on healthcare alone.
Mm-hmm. They have to have that to cover healthcare and retirement.
Where's the good news?
Okay, well,
obviously not in that article, not in that study. The reason I ask that is because, a lot of people come in our office and they're very worried and they're verklempt. They're nervous.
Sure.
They're feeling very uncomfortable because things are going in a certain way. They've saved X amount of dollars. And they realize if they get sick, there goes all the money. Mm-hmm. So Heather, maybe you remember, it was maybe a month ago, maybe several weeks ago. We had someone on the show and we were listening to some audio and their fortune was so ominous that I felt bad because they said, hey, if the market doesn't lose it for you, no problem. Because they're going to take it from you in the form of healthcare costs when you're dead. So don't get all hung up in this estate tax problem because there won't be an estate. They're going to suck it from you either when you're living through taxation or when you're almost dying. They're going to suck it from you for this. And I remember thinking about that's terrible. Like, I don't believe that. There's no way that's true. And yet here we see today another study. And they say that, hey, out of pocket, it's going to cost you $300,000. No. We know you paid into Medicare all these years. Right. And and Medicare is going to be there. It's going to do whatever it's going to do. But at least as of right now, it's still going to cost you out of pocket about $300,000. Yep. And the crazy thing to me is every time I look at this number, Heather, I look at it and go, yeah, I don't know about that. Like, I think that may be just a little too ominous. There may be a little bit too much doom and gloom in that for me.
Okay.
But then here's what happens. Then I go back in my own personal life.
Yep.
And I go back to my father, and my mother spent from his IRA about $460,000 to pay for in-home care for him because she couldn't handle the thought in her mindset of him being in a facility that she wouldn't be in.
Right.
And then I have to think about it. Oh my goodness, that was one person.
Yep.
That wasn't an entire lifetime. That was about 8 years. In 8 years, my parents spent $400,000+. That was the gross amount. They had to pay taxes on that.
Yep.
They had to pay not only taxes on that, they actually, because the amount they had to pull out on an annual basis, bumped them into a higher tax bracket over those years. They got killed from taxation and having to take out IRA money to pay for healthcare. Yep. And when I see these things, every time I see that number, $300,000, I'm like, there's no way. But then I think about my own real situation. I'm like, oh my gosh, it could be 10 times worse than that.
Yep.
So my point to this is I do not want anyone listening to think for 1 second I'm a doomsdayer or I am a doom and gloom person and or think that you're going to be wiped out.
You're an experienced liver. You've lived it.
Here's what I would say, Heather, I'm a survivor.
Yeah.
Is people always like to use that moniker for things. I learned from that situation because we never planned for healthcare in my firm ever once. And I didn't do it for a couple years after until I looked at all the numbers after my father had passed away and I made the realization, holy moly, this may be something that I could have changed or helped or guided or done something different. And that's why in our office, we have 5 things. It has nothing to do with just healthcare, nothing to do with just investments, nothing to do with just income. It has everything to do, guys, with how do we live our life in retirement and do it all so that we can stay retired, right?
Yep.
And Heather, we've talked about there are 5 critical elements we have to do. Number 1, you have to know how much protection is in your portfolio.
Yeah.
Which assets do you have that can lose you money? And which assets do you know that can't lose you money or protecting your money, right? That's number 1. Number 2, how are you getting your income? Are you praying and hoping that you can get a dividend? Are you hoping and praying that the market goes up? Or do you know that there's a portion of your money specifically used to generate an income so that you know for the next 20 years, you can't run out of money, right? Similar to a pension or similar to a guaranteed payment or similar to an alternative income strategy that doesn't have anything to do with the market, right? The third thing we have to think about after we get down protection and income is understanding how are we going to be taxed on this?
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned a minute ago because this question was about, or this comment was about healthcare.
Yeah.
My father had the majority of his money that he saved for both him and my mom in an IRA. And that is horribly tax inefficient if you need the money at a certain period of time.
Right.
As a matter of fact, it is so horribly tax inefficient. I would almost rather people save their money in taxable accounts than put it in tax deferred in some situations.
Okay.
And that is not something that I typically say on air.
That's not a light statement, but it's a
having
reality
said that,
in some
when
cases.
it came down to my parents, would they have been better off in assets in a taxable account in that situation? Absolutely, they would have been better off, without question. They would have been 10 times better off, actually, when it comes to taxation. So you have to understand the third thing that we solve for is tax strategy. How do we design our money so that we can have the protection we need to feel comfortable at night, the income we need to stay retired, and know that we're giving the government our fair share, but we will dictate what's fair based on the actual policies of the government.
Yeah.
Not what someone tells us, what the actual rules state. Because if you do it that way, ladies and gentlemen, you can put hundreds of thousands of dollars in your own very pocket that you own the money on instead of the government's. Guys, that's only smart. So after those 3, then the next big thing we work on is wealth transfer. So some people say estate planning. Well, that's fine, but that implies you're dead. You don't need to do a whole bunch of planning when you're dead. Your money goes where it goes. But if you do wealth transfer, you understand that often, just like in my parents' situation, the first time we transfer wealth is from a joint couple to a single filer because they're in a different tax situation. So when you understand where the money needs to go to travel so that you can transfer the wealth within the family first before it goes to the next generation, you can often save yourself a fortune in taxes. Big difference. And the number 5 thing. So we've gone through already. Protection number 1, know where your money is safe. Where are you protected? Number 2, how much income can you create and is it stable? Number 3, are you keeping that income or is it going to go to the government because you didn't plan right or you didn't know or no one told you or it's just not an efficient strategy? Number 4, how do you title it so that it goes to your family members, your future generations, your surviving spouse, your children and not the government? And lastly, healthcare. I historically have hated long-term care insurance. Now, hold on. Don't put me up there on the wall and throw darts in my face if you're in the healthcare industry. That is not the point. The point is it is really expensive when you realize you need it.
Yeah.
Really expensive when you realize you need it. And I don't think that most people, when they're thinking about retirement, so they're 62 to 72, I don't think it's often a viable way to deal with the costs. Having said that, you still need to plan for it.
Right.
You need to understand, are there hybrid things you can do to keep money in a money market, but if you use it for long-term care, it may give you 50% more than what's in that money market to cover long-term care. Or it offsets your tax bill. So if you have to use IRA money to pay for long-term care, you might be able to find a way to offset at least the taxes on it. Right? So those are things that are evolving. They're getting better. They're not perfect, but they're getting better. If these are things that you're not yet working on, please understand healthcare is going to be a major problem for most Americans because most Americans have not saved enough money to pay for it. But before we have to worry about what happens when we're almost out of this world, we have to make sure we can stay in this world with dignity and do the things we want to do, which is why we do this for all of our clients when it comes to planning for retirement. Yeah. So if you're worried about healthcare costs, make sure the other 4 things are in line first, right? Protection, income, taxes, and wealth transfer. If you get those 4 things right, the healthcare will handle itself if you do it correctly. If you don't have a plan that does it all, please call my staff today. Let them have the opportunity to help you understand what you can do to find out all of those alternatives to get you in the right position.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to Jon's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Inc. is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. It does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Jonathan Hicks, insurance license number 548962.